Welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Hope you guys are doing great today. Today is Saturday, June 6th, and I'm calling from Red Hot, Texas. I got another barn burner going on outside. It's kind of like when you walk outside. To me, it feels like, that the Furion in Chronicles of Riddick when he walks out of that hangar and he just kind of dissolves in the heat. And every time I leave the air-conditioned building, either my home or work or wherever, it always feels like that. Just walk out and you just get hit by this wall that just seems to dissolve you to nothing. Hey, but today we're going to take another trip down the time tunnel wing of the Temple of Tomes. A little background on this one. I'd seen the movie Logan. This is back in, I don't know when that movie came out, 2015, 16, somewhere around there, maybe 14. Really liked it. And they had the character Laura in there, who's X-23, also known as X-23. And I saw this comic. This is kind of came out before I got back into comics. I got back in about April of 2012 and started hanging out at the comic shop more and learning more about what I'd missed over all the years. And so anyway, I picked this one up thinking it would be a good read. Probably I picked up shortly after the Logan movie. And I'll tell you what, it was a real struggle for me. I just finished it. I just could not keep any kind of momentum going through this comic. It just didn't capture my page turning mode at all. I know I had brought it with me on a couple trips and hoping to read a little bit at times. Sometimes I just read something else instead. I pick it up. I couldn't remember where I was. I couldn't remember what had happened. It just wasn't very memorable for me. This is X-23. I should say that it is called The Killing Dream. And it was issues 1 through 6. They started in 2010, finished up in 2011. The writer of this is Marjorie Liu. I think I said that right. Liu, Liu. And the artist is Mr. Will Conrad. Well, he was the artist at least on the first issue. Then they went to other artists for the follow-up issues, and so there's this kind of jarring change in artistry, which I never care for. So they don't get a run going as far as a team. Maybe the first 2 issues was with Will Conrad, and then some other ones came in to fill up after that. I also like this cover. It was really, really sexy to me. She looks kind of cute. It's not really what goes on in this book. It's mostly Laura kind of getting, I don't know if it's kind of this telepathic signal or it's just she's just having dreams, and the dream sequences, you don't know if it's real or not. There's a Wolverine appears a lot, and he usually ends up dying in these dream sequences. There's some run-ins with some real life X-Men in real time, but the whole thing is just slow and laborious, and it's also drawn or colored, I should say, in seems to be my favorite choice. This is Brownovision. The whole thing is kind of different and not really different. It's just the kind of these brownish tones and golden tones. But so there's a lot of stuff that goes on in these dreams, and to me it didn't make a lot of sense. And I must be a simple mind. I'm probably going to go on and check what other reviewers said about this book, because I always seem to have quite a different opinion than everybody else. If I don't like it, it seems like people just are glowing about it, unless it's a real stinker. But people just think it's the greatest thing ever, and it should have been the movie instead of the other thing, and blah blah blah. This, I did not get that at all. It was hard to tell who X-23 Laura's who her alliance is with. She just kind of wanders through. There's just a lot of talking, and the dream sequences typically have some kind of quickly evolve into some action. But for the most part, they're just kind of standing around, walking around. Not a lot of things going on. That's his real time. Now what we see here is, this is probably a dream. It's like, because suddenly someone's dead. So yeah, she just kind of slips into these dreams. The art in it is pretty good. I mean, it's sufficient. Like I said, this coloring, I don't know what it is, if all books are like this, or I just happen to pick up the ones that are got these darker, never seems like it's quite night. That's another dream sequence, obviously, because that's what we got in here, is lots of dream sequences. So anyway, she's kind of wandering around the landscape, meeting different X-Men. She ends up, the story pretty much ends up, she's with Gambit, and Gambit says, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." And he goes, "Well, I don't know you, but that's what people have done for me. They don't know me, and they've helped me." And that's kind of gives her a little bit of a building moment as far as that goes. Just more dream sequence here. Okay, so moves along. She finally kind of, all these dreams and paths and lead her to I want to say it's like a underground laboratory facility in a ghost town run by someone named Claudine Renko, who's really Miss Sinister, a shapeshifter, who's kind of the embodiment of Mr. Sinister, who built the lab down there underneath. And she discovers there's all these other children, these clones like her. She was actually, I guess you can call her a clone. They took Wolverine's DNA and spliced it, but they only had the X, the X chromosomes, so they could only make females. And this is actually the last half of it, or last issue or so, issue and a half, is not dreamlike. It's just her going back and forth against Claudine, Miss Sinister, in different kinds of fights and things. And one big scene here is they knock out Miss Sinister, only to bring back an apparition, or I guess just a different version of Mr. Sinister for a little bit. Somehow he's tied into Miss Sinister. If she goes down, then he kind of pops up, and when he goes down, she comes back. So there's a lot of that going on. I'm rambling a little bit here. So anyway, as far as sales went, when the first issue came out, and this is way back in 2010, I think it was September was the first issue. It started about 48,000, for almost 49,000. Second issue dropped down to 35, and then third was at 31,000, and then it was just, for the rest of that run, for the sixth issue, it was just under 30,000. So did pretty decent. Not great, but pretty decent. And then they came out with the hardcover April of 2011, and that sold about, or they shipped 1,400. All these numbers aren't sold. These are all shipped numbers. So who knows how much they actually sold. Soft cover came out about 6 months later, and that shipped about 2,500 copies. So it did fairly well overall. Like I said, this is an older book. Here's the cover for issue 6. I don't know if you remember that. And I thought I had something marked here. Just a sample of the dialogue, I guess. So, this is Miss Sinister's knocked out X-23. And it was kind of hard to tell sometimes Miss Sinister from X-23 unless you saw the diamond on Miss Sinister. Miss Sinister's also a part of the Hellfire group, or originally was part of that. If you remember that Hellfire Club way back when. Kinky Squad. So what I found most interesting here, though, was at the very, very end, and I'm not going to say I recommend this book, but the best thing that I found was a short synopsis of kind of X-23 up to this point, and just kind of brief paragraphs. And I actually enjoyed this a lot more than the comic book, and it goes, oh, okay. And it has a more interesting story. It was just a brief, like each one of these paragraphs is kind of maybe an issue or two of something that happened in the past. And I think it was written by Joseph. Let me see if I can write his name down. Okay, here you go. Joseph. I'm having trouble reading that. York. It's right there. So that was super interesting. Kind of caught me up to date with X-23. I had not been really up to speed on her. So that was a nice addition for this trade. Can't recommend this, however. If you pick it up cheap in a half-price bin or a $5 bin somewhere, might be fun to read if you like X-23 or the X-Men. But for me, it's not a must-have. It will be going back to the store to get credit when I turn it in with just about everything else. I rarely keep anything. I'm not really a collector, but I do turn it back in and pick up new stuff. God, don't have room for all these comics, so moving them out. But that's the story for today. So not a recommend for this one, but if you look at the back few pages, maybe you can read it at the store and just get caught up. If you're not that familiar with X-23, I thought that was the best thing about this book. So for now, I'm signing off. This is Indie Comics Jones from the Temple of Tomes. Be kind to everyone. 2 wrongs don't make it right. All right? Take care, guys.